"Don't come home, you're on your own and we're done." The notification pierced through my exhaustion at 2:47 a.m. I was in hour 36 of a thesis marathon, my eyes burning from staring at papers. My father had 3 rules since Mom died: no texts after 9 p.m., no surprise visits without calling, and no family drama over text. So seeing his name at this ungodly hour sent ice straight through my veins. "We're done." I read it once, twice. The third time, my hand started shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. The capital letters felt like shouting. The grammar was wrong. Dad was a stickler for proper punctuation, even in texts. Something was catastrophically wrong. My name is Leah Ferguson. I'm 26 years old, and until 3 minutes ago, I thought pulling 3 all-nighters to finish my molecular biology PhD thesis while juggling shifts at the campus lab, tutoring, and weekend inventory at the medical supply store was my biggest challenge. But apparently, being disowned by the only parent I had left just jumped to the top of that list. The really sick part? My first thought wasn't sadness or confusion, it was Sandra. Because it's always Sandra. My phone erupted like Mount Vesuvius. Our family group chat, Ferguson family forever. Sandra's idea, the irony isn't lost on me, went absolutely nuclear. 47 missed calls in 10 minutes. Texts flying so fast my phone started lagging. Aunt Margaret called 6 times in a row. Even Jake, my 16-year-old half-brother who exclusively communicated through Discord and gaming headsets, was calling. "Leah, your phone sounds like a freaking casino jackpot," Beth mumbled from under her blanket fortress. She emerged, took one look at my face, and went into full crisis mode. "Oh God, what did Sandra do now?" "How do you always know it's Sandra?" "Because your dad wouldn't text you that unless someone was holding a gun to his head, and that someone is always your stepmom." Beth sat up fully, her expression changing. "Wait, this reminds me. I saw Sandra yesterday at that bougie spa downtown. You know, the one that charges more than our rent for a facial? She was cackling with some friend about finally being free and something about Switzerland." "Switzerland?" My stepmother could barely find Wisconsin on a map. Then Jake's text cut through the chaos, sent directly, not through the family chat. "Leah, don't believe it. Dad's been unconscious since 8. I watched Sandra take his phone. She's been acting psycho for weeks. She doesn't know I installed a recovery app on Dad's phone that logs everything." The screenshot he sent next made my blood run cold. The phone's activity log showed the text was typed and retyped 17 times. Starting at 11 p.m., Sandra had spent 3 hours crafting the perfect disownment message. But the real kicker was the Google search history from right before. How to legally disown adult children, inheritance rights after disownment, and my personal favorite, can I cancel someone else's defense? Beth was already in full detective mode, scrolling through Sandra's Instagram. "Leah, look at this." She showed me a story posted at 3 a.m., right after the text. It was a quote about new beginnings and cutting toxic people out of your life with a champagne glass emoji. Then the video came through from Jake. He'd been recording Sandra for weeks, pretending to be absorbed in his games while she ranted on the phone. This one was from earlier that evening. "The little princess has no idea what's coming. 27 days until her birthday. And if she's disowned before then, that inheritance becomes part of the general estate. Robert doesn't even know his mother left her everything. $3 million, and he has no clue. Once she's out of the picture, as his wife, I control everything. God, I'm brilliant. $3 million. Grandma Rose had left me $3 million, and I had no idea. The next morning arrived without sleep, but with reinforcements. Aunt Margaret showed up at my dorm at 6 a.m. with coffee and war paint. Her words, not mine. "I've been documenting that woman's BS for 2 years, she announced, wheeling in an actual filing cabinet. "Your daddy called her paranoid." Well, paranoia's about to save his life. Margaret had receipts, literal receipts. Sandra's spending had skyrocketed in the past 6 months. Designer clothes, jewelry, weekly spa treatments, all while telling Dad they needed to tighten their belts and maybe couldn't help with my student loans anymore. "But here's the kicker," Margaret said, pulling out a photo. "This is from Bob's pharmacy. Your sweet stepmother buying sleeping pills, anxiety medication, and something called cognitive inhibitors separately, all prescribed by different doctors she's been shopping around to visit. Before I continue this insanity, I need to thank you for being here. If you could take just a second to hit that like button and drop a comment about where you're watching from and what time it is there. Thank you so much. Jake's intel was even more disturbing. He'd been recording everything since Sandra started acting strange 6 months ago, right around when she'd helped Dad clean out the attic and must have found Grandma Rose's papers. The recording he sent next was from 3 days ago. Sandra on the phone with someone, panic in her voice. I don't care what it costs. She cannot get that money, do you understand? If she inherits before I can get Robert to sign the new will, we're screwed. My debts are coming due, and those people don't accept excuses. Debts? What debts? Emma Martinez, my best friend, and now a paralegal at Johnson & Associates, arrived with her laptop and a look that meant business. Leah, I ran a background check. This is Sandra's third marriage where children were cut off right before major inheritances. I found court records. Her first husband's daughter lost a $2 million trust fund. The second husband's son was disowned 2 weeks before inheriting his grandfather's business worth $5 million. And get this, Emma continued, both men were on similar medication regimens when the disowning happened. Both men recovered their relationships with their kids after divorcing Sandra. Both men said they barely remembered making the decision. The storage unit revelation came from Mrs. Chen, the neighbor with the Ring doorbell. She'd been sending Margaret footage for months. Every Tuesday at 3 a.m., Sandra would load boxes into her car and drive to a storage unit across town, the same storage unit where her best friend Brenda worked the night shift. Your father hasn't been himself for 6 months, Mrs. Chen told me over the phone. He used to walk his dog every morning, wave hello. Now he barely leaves the house, and when he does, he looks confused. The real bombshell came when Jake accessed Sandra's Google Drive. She'd accidentally stayed logged in on his iPad. The documents were all there. Forged power of attorney papers, a new will leaving everything to Sandra, and most terrifying, applications for several memory care facilities in Montana, all requiring no family visits for the first 90 days of adjustment. But Sandra had made one crucial mistake. In her rush to seem like the perfect wife, she'd joined Dad's bowling league. The same bowling league where his best friend Tom was a retired detective. Tom had started noticing things too. Your dad showed up to bowling last week, Tom called to tell me. Couldn't remember how to keep score. The man who bowled a perfect game in 09 couldn't remember how many pins to knock down. But when Sandra stepped away, he grabbed my arm and whispered, "Help me." Then she came back and he went blank again. The next 48 hours were a blur of legal maneuvering and covert operations. Emma had us working like a well-oiled machine. "We need everything documented before Sandra knows we're onto her," she said. "Once she knows, she'll destroy evidence." Operation Save Dad began at 2 a.m. Jake had given us the garage door code, and I knew Sandra took Ambien at 10 p.m. sharp, one of the few medications she actually needed. Apparently, we had a window. The house felt wrong the moment I stepped inside. Photos of me were gone from the walls, replaced with pictures of Sandra and her son. My childhood room had been converted into Sandra's meditation space, which looked suspiciously like a storage room for shopping bags. But Dad's office was the real crime scene. Sticky notes in Sandra's handwriting covered everything. Sign here, initial this, date that. A stack of documents sat on his desk, all partially signed in Dad's shaky handwriting, then apparently abandoned when he couldn't remember what he was signing. Then I found it, the smoking gun, a notebook in Sandra's handwriting titled Project Liberation. It was a timeline. January, introduce vitamins for his memory. February, increase dosage, add afternoon doses. March, get power of attorney signed. April, isolate from Margaret and Tom. May, begin facility research. June, create crisis. Implement final phase. We were in June. The crisis was me being disowned. Jake whispered from the doorway. She's stirring. We grabbed what we could and ran, but not before I saw Dad through his bedroom door. He looked so small, so fragile. Nothing like the man who taught me to ride a bike, who stayed up all night when I had nightmares after Mom died. The forensic accountant Emma brought in found the money trail within hours. Sandra had opened 17 credit cards in Dad's name. Maxing them all out, she'd taken 3 home equity loans. The retirement account was being slowly drained, small enough amounts to avoid flags, but it added up to $340,000 over 6 months. But where was the money going? David Chen, Sandra's second ex-husband, had the answer. He'd been tracking her for years, building a case. She has a gambling problem, he said over coffee, sliding a folder across the table. High-stakes poker, underground casinos. She owes some very dangerous people approximately $500,000. They gave her until the end of June to pay. The end of June, Leah's birthday, the inheritance. It all clicked. She did the same to me, David continued. Drugged me, isolated me, stole everything. But she made one mistake. She got cocky. Started bragging to her friends. That's how I caught her. We had 25 days until my birthday. Sandra had the same countdown, but she didn't know we were racing against her. Emma filed an emergency injunction to freeze all major financial decisions involving Dad's assets. It was a Friday afternoon. Sandra wouldn't know until Monday when she tried to cash out his life insurance. Jake was our secret weapon. He'd started streaming his gaming sessions, but forgot to turn off the room mic. When Sandra went on her nightly rant about her plans, 32 Minecraft players heard everything, including the police chief's son. Mom's losing it, Jake texted me. She's on the phone with someone named Vinny about payment extensions. She keeps saying she'll have the money in 3 weeks. Then Sandra escalated. She tried to have Dad admitted to a psychiatric facility for evaluation. She'd convinced some hack doctor to sign off on it, claiming Dad was a danger to himself. The ambulance was literally in the driveway when Aunt Margaret arrived with Dad's real doctor, who hadn't seen him in 6 months because Sandra kept canceling appointments. This man needs immediate medical attention, Dr. Morrison said after examining Dad, but not psychiatric. He's being over-medicated. This combination of drugs could cause serious cognitive impairment. The paramedics took Dad to the hospital, the real hospital, not Sandra's chosen facility. Sandra tried to ride along, but Margaret physically blocked her family only, she said sweetly. And you're about to not be family. I need to pause here and ask for your support. If you're finding value in this story, please hit that subscribe button and like this video. Your support helps me reach others who might be facing similar situations. It really does make all the difference. The hospital scene was chaos. Sandra arrived with her lawyer, some strip mall attorney who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. She was screaming about her rights as a spouse, waving power of attorney papers that, upon inspection, were clearly forged. I demand you release my husband to my care immediately, she shrieked at the head nurse, mascara already running from her crocodile tears. Ma'am, your husband is conscious and has explicitly asked that you not be allowed in his room, the nurse replied calmly. She'd clearly dealt with this before. That's when Sandra made her biggest mistake. She grabbed the nurse's arm. Security was called. The police were called. And Jake was live streaming the whole thing on Sandra's own Facebook account. The hospital became ground zero for Sandra's downfall. While she was being detained for assaulting a nurse, Dad was getting the medical care he actually needed. The toxicology report was damning. He had enough sedatives in his system to knock out a horse, plus cognitive inhibitors that are typically used for severe psychiatric conditions he didn't have. I knew something was wrong, Dad said weakly when I finally got to see him. But every time I tried to think about it, everything got foggy. She kept saying it was dementia, that I was losing my mind. I started to believe her. Dad, you're not losing anything except a terrible wife, I said, holding his hand. Dr. Morrison explained that, with proper treatment, Dad would recover most of his cognitive function within weeks. The drugs Sandra gave him were designed to be temporary. She needed him functional enough to sign documents, but impaired enough not to question anything. Then the cavalry arrived in the most unexpected form. Sandra's first husband's daughter, Monica Chen. No relation to David Chen, ironically. She'd seen the live stream going viral and drove 3 hours to the hospital. That woman destroyed my family, Monica said, placing a thick folder on the table. I've been waiting 15 years for this moment. Here's everything. Recordings, documents, proof that she's done this before. The Facebook livestream had taken on a life of its own. #Justice for Robert was trending locally. People who'd been scammed by Sandra over the years started coming forward. Her hairdresser revealed Sandra had been talking about coming into money soon for months. The country club she'd joined on Dad's credit had recorded her bragging about being a wealthy widow soon, except Dad wasn't dead yet. Jake's contribution was the piece de resistance. He'd found Sandra's practice documents on her laptop, versions of Dad's will where she'd tried different forgery techniques, voice recordings of her practicing Dad's signature verbal confirmation, and most damning, a draft email to a hitman that she thankfully never sent, probably because she couldn't figure out the dark web. Your stepmom tried to hire an assassin but got confused by Bitcoin, Jake said with a mix of horror and amusement. She literally Googled how to pay hitman with iTunes gift cards. The police detective assigned to the case couldn't hide his amazement. In 30 years, I've never seen someone document their own crimes so thoroughly, he said. She basically created a prosecution gift basket. Sandra was formally arrested at 6 p.m. that day. The charges: elder abuse, fraud, identity theft, attempted murder, the medication could have killed him, and assault on a healthcare worker. Her bail was set at $500,000, ironically exactly what she owed her gambling associates. The next 2 weeks were a legal hurricane. Sandra's lawyer quit after seeing the evidence. Her second lawyer quit when she tried to pay him with Dad's stolen credit cards. Her third lawyer was a public defender who looked like he'd aged 5 years in 5 days. The forensic accounting revealed the full scope of Sandra's crimes. She'd stolen not just from Dad, but from his business, taking out loans against the commercial property he owned. She'd sold his classic car collection to private buyers, telling Dad they were in the shop. She'd even cashed in his life insurance policies for their surrender value. Total theft, $1.8 million over 2 years. But here's the interesting part, the forensic accountant said. She's terrible at crime. She left a paper trail so clear, my intern could follow it. She used her own name on everything, kept receipts, even took selfies at the casino while gambling with your father's money. David Chen's contribution was crucial. He documented Sandra's patterns so thoroughly that the FBI got involved. Turns out Sandra had been running this scam across state lines, making it federal. The Federal Bureau of Investigation would like to thank you for your cooperation, the agent said formally. Then, off the record, your stepmother might be the dumbest criminal we've ever caught. She live-streamed herself committing crimes, multiple times. Dad's recovery was remarkable. Within a week of proper treatment, he was himself again, sharp, funny, and absolutely furious. 14 years, he said during his testimony. 14 years I trusted her with everything. She played the long game, I'll give her that. But she forgot one thing. Fergusons don't go down without a fight. Jake had to make the hardest decision of his life. His mother or the truth. He chose truth. My mom told me family sticks together no matter what, he testified. But family doesn't drug each other. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't plot murder. Leah's been more of a mother to me than Sandra ever was. She helped with homework. She came to my gaming tournaments. She never once drugged anyone. The judge was not amused by Sandra's courtroom theatrics. She fainted twice, badly, claimed amnesia 3 times, and tried to fire her lawyer 6 times during the trial. She also made the mistake of muttering, "This judge is an idiot," directly into the court reporter's microphone. Sandra got 20 years, eligible for parole in 10. The judge called it the most calculated, cruel case of elder abuse and family destruction he'd seen in his career. The restitution order was for the full $1.8 million. Though good luck collecting that from someone who tried to pay for a hitman with iTunes cards. The revelations didn't stop at the trial. Grandma Rose, it turned out, had been playing 4D chess from beyond the grave. Her lawyer, Mr. Fitzgerald, had been holding a sealed envelope with instructions to open it only if Sandra tried something stupid. Your grandmother was a court reporter for 40 years. He explained, adjusting his ancient spectacles. She saw every type of family drama imaginable. She knew exactly what Sandra was the moment she met her. The envelope contained a forensic accounting report Grandma Rose had commissioned on Sandra 5 years ago. She'd hired a private investigator who discovered Sandra's first husband hadn't died of a heart attack as reported. The autopsy had been suspiciously rushed, the body cremated immediately, and Sandra had inherited everything just 2 days before he'd planned to file for divorce. "I'm not saying she killed him," Mr. Fitzgerald said carefully, "but your grandmother was, quite explicitly, in writing, with evidence." The cold case unit reopened the investigation immediately. Sandra's 20 years was looking more like life without parole, but the universe wasn't done with Sandra yet. Her gambling debts came due while she was in custody. The people she owed weren't the type to accept "I'm in jail" as an excuse. They went after her hidden assets, the ones she thought no one knew about. Turns out Sandra had been skimming from her own scams, hiding money in offshore accounts. The FBI found them all because, and I cannot stress this enough, she had the passwords written on a sticky note in her purse. The accounts totaled $400,000, still short of what she owed, but enough to keep her creditors from doing anything drastic. Jake officially moved in with me while I finished my thesis. The kid was brilliant. His gaming skills translated to coding, and MIT offered him early admission based on a program he wrote that could detect elder fraud patterns in banking transactions. He named it the Sandra Alert System. "I want to make sure no one else goes through what Dad went through," he said during his MIT interview. They offered him a full scholarship on the spot. Dad's recovery was nothing short of miraculous. Within 3 months, he was back to his old self. Actually, better than his old self. The experience had given him purpose. He started a support group for elder abuse victims that met every Thursday in our living room. The red flags were all there, he'd tell new members. Sudden affection after years of distance, insistence on managing medications, isolation from family and friends. These aren't signs of love. They're tactics of control. The support group grew from 5 members to 50 within 6 months. Dad became a certified counselor, and the local news did a feature on him. The headline, "From Victim to Victor: How Robert Ferguson Survived Elder Abuse and Saves Others." During one meeting, a woman named Diane attended. She was a retired FBI agent whose mother had been victimized similarly. She and Dad bonded over their shared experiences and their mutual love of bad cop shows. Their first date was to a documentary about financial crimes. "I ran a full background check on him before we went out," Diane told me with a wink. "Credit score, criminal history, previous marriages, social media, deep dive, your dad's clean. Well, except for his bowling scores. Those are criminally bad." The inheritance from Grandma Rose finally transferred on my 27th birthday, but it wasn't $3 million as Sandra had thought. It was $4.7 million Grandma had invested wisely, and the trust had grown. Her letter to me, delivered with the inheritance, was classic Rose. "My dearest Leah, if you're reading this, you've survived Hurricane Sandra. I knew that woman was trouble when she wore white to my 70th birthday party. Who does that? Use this money wisely. Start a foundation, help others, and for God's sake, make sure Jake gets therapy. That boy's going to need it. All my love, Grandma Rose. P.S. Check the attic again. There's another box Sandra missed." The box contained photos of Mom, her journals, and a letter she'd written to me before she died. Sandra had hidden them, probably planning to destroy them, but Grandma Rose had found them first and hidden them better. 1 year later, I stood on the stage at Harvard accepting my PhD in molecular biology. The auditorium was packed with my real family, the one forged through fire, not just blood. Dad sat front row center, filming with his phone, upside down as usual, tears streaming down his face. Jake sat next to him, trying to fix the phone while live streaming for Aunt Margaret, who was home recovering from a line dancing injury she refused to explain in detail. "That's my daughter!" Dad shouted when they called my name, causing everyone to laugh and me to turn red. "The doctor, the PhD doctor, not the medical doctor, the smart kind." Diane, now officially my stepmom after a small wedding where everyone was background checked at Dad's insistence, corrected his filming angle while beaming with pride. The Grandma Rose Foundation for Family Financial Protection had helped 73 families in its first year. We provided legal resources, emergency safe housing, and most importantly, validation for people who'd been gaslit into doubting their own reality. Our success rate for intervention was 89%. Jake gave a speech at my graduation party that left everyone in tears. 3 years ago, my biological mother tried to destroy our family for money. She failed because she underestimated the power of truth, the strength of real love, and the determination of a sister who refused to abandon her weird gaming brother Leah. Isn't just my sister. She's my hero. She saved Dad, she saved me, and through the foundation, she's saving strangers every day. Also, she helped me get to Grandmaster rank in League of Legends, which is honestly just as important. The Foundation's first major case made national news. We helped uncover a ring of people running Sandra-style schemes across 6 states. The FBI agent assigned to the case, Diane's former partner, who said it was the easiest case he'd ever worked because we documented everything perfectly. You all learned from the master of self-incrimination. He said, Sandra's legacy is that she was so bad at crime. She's now literally a textbook example at Quantico of what not to do. Sandra tried to contact us once from prison. She sent a letter full of manipulation, fake apologies, and requests for money. Jake framed it in the foundation office with a plaque. Exhibit A, How to Spot Manipulation Tactics. We use it in our training seminars. Her latest scheme from prison, trying to sell her story for a Netflix series, failed when Netflix realized she'd already live-streamed all her crimes for free. They made a documentary about us instead, with the profits going to the foundation. The documentary won an Emmy. Sandra had to watch it on the prison TV. Dad's support group became a national model. He traveled to conferences, speaking about his experience. His catchphrase became famous in elder abuse prevention circles. If someone needs to drug you to love you, that's not love. That's a felony. At Jake's MIT graduation, valedictorian because of course he was, he announced his senior project, an AI system that could detect elder abuse patterns in medical records and banking transactions simultaneously. Google offered him a job on the spot. He negotiated for them to fund the foundation as part of his signing bonus. My mom taught me an important lesson, Jake said in his valedictorian speech. She showed me exactly who I never want to be. Sometimes the best teachers are the worst examples. The wedding between Dad and Diane was perfect. Small, genuine, and heavily secured, Diane's FBI friends insisted. During the father-daughter dance, Dad whispered, "Thank you for saving my life, Princess." "You saved mine first," I replied. "Every time you chose to stay after Mom died. Every time you fought through Sandra's fog to remember you loved me. Every time you chose recovery over revenge." The last update on Sandra came from her former cellmate, who reached out to the foundation. Apparently, Sandra had tried to run a scam in prison, selling legal advice to other inmates. She got caught because, and this is absolutely true, she tried to forge the warden's signature and spelled his name wrong. She got another 5 years added to her sentence. As I write this, sitting in the foundation office, I can see Dad through the window. He's teaching a seminar called Red Flags and Real Love, How to Spot the Difference. Diane is co-teaching. Adding her FBI perspective, Jake is in the corner, supposedly working but actually playing games. Some things never change. The text that said, "I was on my own," that was indeed Dad's last wish, but it was the last wish of the man Sandra had tried to create, the father she'd tried to steal from me, the real Dad. The one who fought through pharmaceutical fog to whisper, "Help me." The one who chose truth over comfortable lies. The one teaching survivors right now. His wishes were just beginning. Sandra thought she was playing the long game. She planned for 14 years to steal everything from us. But she didn't account for one thing. Love is longer than any con-truth outlasts any lie. And family, real family, chosen family, forged in fire family, is worth more than any inheritance. The foundation's motto, suggested by Jake and approved unanimously: when someone shows you who they are through their actions, believe them the first time. When they show you who they are through their live streams, save the recording for court. Every Thursday, Dad ends his support group the same way. You survived the worst thing someone who claimed to love you could do. You're not victims anymore. You're warriors. And warriors don't just survive. They thrive and help others do the same. The woman who texted, "You're on your own," from my father's phone thought she was cutting me off from everything. Instead, she connected me to a purpose, a mission, and a family stronger than any genetic bond. She thought she was ending my story. She was just writing the first chapter of something better. And yes, we still use that coffee mug with Sandra's arrest photo from the spa. Dad drinks his morning coffee from it. His real medication now just being caffeine and Diane's excellent brew. Best mug ever, he says every morning. Reminds me that no matter how bad today might be, at least I'm not being arrested in a cucumber face mask. The last I heard, Sandra was trying to teach a prison entrepreneurship class. It was canceled after the first session when she tried to explain cryptocurrency using monopoly money and somehow set the fake money on fire. She has 18 more years to figure it out. Meanwhile, we're living our best lives. Drug-free, debt-free, and Sandra-free. And that's the real inheritance Grandma Rose left us. The truth that set us all free.